Episode 6 of the MGM Plus horror show From has released. Episode 6, Scar Tissue. And honestly, that title reflects the storylines that unfold in this episode really well. Almost every storyline in this episode has some sort of themes of scar tissues, like old wounds just sort of festering and just sort of coping with them. If you've been enjoying my coverage of the show, then consider dropping a sub. Not only do you support me, my channel, and the videos, but you'll never miss an upload for the next time I cover the next episode. We're shooting for 10K by the end of the year, and it would really mean a lot to me if we could hit that goal. Also, I promised I'd get my first tattoo if we hit that goal. So if you want to see me get some ink on me, press the sub button. And you know what? Screw being chronological, screw my own rules, and screw my system. We're doing the storylines at a time, not in order. Screw all that. Let's start with Kenny, since I'm really worried about my precious boy, okay? I'm really worried about him, and I want to see if he's okay. We see Kenny helping out in the clinic, helping to inventory all the supplies that was on the ambulance, and apparently this ambulance was fully stocked, so the town has a bunch of new medical supplies, which is great. Marielle tells Kenny that he did more than he had to with helping out at the clinic today, and, that he should go home and get some well-earned rest. Even though I'm not as invested in Marielle as I am in other characters, I really enjoyed her presence on screen this season. On his way out, Kenny runs into Boyd, and doing his best to keep his promise, Boyd asks how Kenny is doing. And poor Kenny, he says he's alright, but his smile and demeanor is so fake, and you can just tell that the man is not okay. Boyd gives a slight but considerate push to let Kenny know that if he wants to talk about it, he can. But Kenny's like, no, I don't want to talk about it, I really don't want to, and Boyd is immediately backing off like, okay, totally cool, I 100% respect your boundaries. After everything that's happened with Boyd's previous schemes, especially with Sarah, it's good to see that Boyd has gotten his priorities in order and has become 100% fully considerate of all of his townsfolk, Kenny most of all. Later on, Kenny catches Julie partaking of the good old devil's lettuce outside his house, and I forgot to mention last episode that Elgin and Julie were getting stoned whilst they were hanging out. I forgot to mention that last time, but it's become apparent that Julie is really struggling to cope, and she's kind of turning to substances to try and avoid coping. Kenny asks where the screwdriver is in the junk drawer that his mom always sort of kept packed full of just random stuff, and Julie explains that her dad probably just moved it without realizing it. Kenny says it's all good, it's no big deal, and honestly, Ricky He's performance in this scene is just fantastic. Like, he's really selling it that Kenny is just not okay. He's not keeping it together very well. Kenny's holding on by a thread, and Ricky He's performance is only enhancing that effect. When he goes back inside, we have this brilliant scene of Kenny looking at his mom and dad's memorial, and then it cuts to a wide shot of Kenny standing alone in his house, and it is just quiet. This scene was just so impactful and so powerful, and it really is the epitome of show, don't tell. We all know exactly what Kenny's going through, and this little scene really shows it. And the last time we see Kenny in this episode, he goes and talks to Donna, who is quote-unquote burying Dale. And they have a little conversation about how what Donna is doing is giving Dale his dignity, because, even assholes deserve dignity. Everybody deserves dignity, that's just a fact. And unsurprisingly, to me anyway, Kenny asks if he can come stay in Colony House, because everything that made his house a home is gone. His mother isn't around anymore, and as Kenny explains, she was the only thing that made that house a home. And Donna, having been through so much and seeing so many people suffer, gladly opens up Colony House to Kenny and lets him know that there's always room. It's a really touching scene with an undertone of somberness and just a little bit of humor bow-tied on at the end, just to remind you that this is Donna we're talking about. And again, I cannot stress enough how much you should go and watch this show for yourself. It's just such a good show. It's fantastic, and I highly recommend you watch it if you haven't seen the show already. And speaking of Donna, we only see her one other time in this episode, where Tabitha comes along and they briefly talk about how god-awful Dale's death was. I mean, who would want to go that way? Man got literally stonewalled in his quest to save everyone. And Tabitha expresses to Donna her self-doubt and worry that her time in the real world was their only chance to do something to help everyone. And that, maybe everybody in the meeting yesterday was right and that she should have done more. But Donna reminds Tabitha that, hey, your kids thought you were dead. You could have been where Dale is right now, but you're still here, and you still have your family. Not to mention Tabitha found proof that there is a way out, and there is still a chance. That's huge. That is so huge. I really like the way they use Donna in this episode, that being sparingly. She's usually a pretty prominent player in this show, but if you make a character too prominent, it can take away from time that can be given to other characters. Where in this episode, they go with the short and sweet kind of mentality, and, even though she's mourning over another one of her people being killed in a gruesome way, she's still letting people lean on her, and she's still giving her support to others, because that's what a leader has to do. It's extremely admirable of her. But let's move on to my guy, my main man, Mr. Conspiracy Theorist, Giga Genius Jade. Trademark pending. We first see Jade inviting Boyd over to the bar to share some of his vague findings from the numbers within the bottle tree. And Boyd mentions the other bottle tree they found, which, by the way, Jade had no clue even existed. Yeah, I'm now starting to notice a lot of these, pretty important details. It seems like no one ever brings them up to Jade until the last possible moment. It just seems to be a recurring theme. He asks where the other bottle tree is, and we cut to the next scene with Victor's dad. Whoa, hey. Is that chronological order I smell? Fuck that shit. Next scene with Jade. Jade finds himself by the other bottle tree, talking to dead Tom.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
And my favorite dialogue from this scene...
It's ironic, no? A drunk looking for answers in a tree filled with bottles.
Whatever Tom is, he's a clear representation of Jade's uncertainty over the smaller details, but also awareness of what Jade already knows he has to do. Tom reminds Jade that he built a multi-million-dollar company from nothing when everyone said he shouldn't even bother trying, and that Jade should sober the hell up and give that guy a call. Good advice, bit harsh, bit gruff, but hey, that's just guys for you. Because that's what he has to do to beat this place. He has to sober the hell up, give his past self a call, and just get to work. And later on, Jade openly lets Tabitha and Ethan come and help him. And we also learn that the numbers inside the bottles from both bottle trees are identical. Some of them repeat, and there is vague signs that there's some sort of pattern. As Tabitha is looking at some of Jade's drawing about the effigies that we saw in the settlement, Tabitha kind of freaks out a little bit, and she asks Jade in a sort of panicked manner if he saw 3 big red stones there. Now, if you remember back from that episode where Jade was at the settlement, he did in fact see 3 big red stones. And here we learn that Tabitha had the same nightmare every night about those effigies and about those red stones. So just like Miranda, Victor's mom, Tabitha had visions about this place before she even arrived. So now we finally have some concrete proof that the type of connection that Miranda and Tabitha had was nearly, if not exactly, the same. Okay, favorite characters talk about. Who do we have next? Oh, I know. Let's spin a wheel. We don't see too much of old Jimmy Boy in this episode, but in the opening scene of this episode, he and Tabitha have a pretty bad fight that give us a little bit of insight into the problems that their marriage had prior to arriving in this place. And it's a pretty bad fight. So bad, in fact, that Julie and Ethan both hear it, and Julie comments that, "Welp, I guess everything's back to normal now." Oh man, that line hits home a little bit harder than I wish it did. Only other bit we hear is that Jim went off to the lake to help gather food for the town, kind of avoiding his problems a little bit. Tabitha points out during their fight that Jim kind of drowned himself in work after Thomas died, and it's clear that Jim is kind of repeating the same mistakes again. And honestly, all things considered, I really hate to say this, but with how impulsive Jim has shown to be, I don't know if I see him surviving to the end of the series. At the clinic, we learn that the ambulance from the last episode had a portable ultrasound machine, and Christy says to head up to Colony House and just let Fatima know that they have it and that she should come on down to the clinic. And before Boyd shows up, Fatima and Ellis are having a talk. It's more venting, really. They're kind of venting about how scared they are about everything. Yeah, duh, no fucking shit. I'd be scared senseless if I A, wound up in a place like that, B, was told I could never conceive, and 3, end up pregnant after ending up in a place like that. I would be scared out of my mind. Boyd shows up in the middle of the talk and lets them know about the ultrasound machine. Fatima, of course, is really hesitant and wants to procrastinate a bit, but after some convincing, they eventually head down to the clinic. They get to the clinic, do the ultrasound, and,
You're not pregnant.
Oh. I didn't see that coming. I was expecting them to see the baby, but it ended up, like, looking unnatural or something weird like that. Like, you know, some sort of indication that something was wrong. And Fatima, obviously, she knows her body better than anyone else, so she kind of starts to freak out and is like, there is something going on inside my body. There's something growing in me, and you need to find it. And Ellis interjects and is like, we need to tell them. Talking about Fatima's very normal and healthy diet, of course. But unfortunately, the scene ends there, and we don't get anything else about this plot line this episode. So if Fatima isn't pregnant at all, at least as far as they can tell, what the hell is happening to her? Is she herself turning into one of these creatures, or is my theory about her carrying one of them still correct, but the machine just can't detect it, or what? I mean, I have no idea, but please feel free to let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. I would love to hear what any of you think about this revelation. Oh, and before we move on, little quick scene kind of related to Fatima. As Elgin is taking pictures of everyone, we see him putting up Fatima's really dreary photo, and he sees the drowned woman slowly appear in her photo, and then she's standing right behind him again. She's pleading for help like she has in the past and saying that she can help them, she can save them, she can get them out, pretty much. I've actually seen a theory doing the rounds that Fatima herself could be the drowned woman, and this scene kind of seems to be like, sort of hinting that that might be the direction it goes in. I don't see how that would work. I mean, it's possible. I mean, I could see with, like, the evidence available, like, how that could connect up. Like, I don't know, it's hard to say, but that's a pretty, you know, the drowned woman appearing in Fatima's photo is kind of some strong evidence that that theory might have some merit to it. Victor and his dad go into the tunnels, and Victor, being a pro gamer, pulls a pro gamer move and uses those little green army soldier toys to sort of act as breadcrumbs so they can find their way out. Of course, Victor tried to stop his dad from coming with him in the first place, but to no avail. He's not going to abandon his son again. We don't get a look at the symbol again, but we do find some pretty interesting things down there, like, for example, a piece of clothing from Miranda. Victor's dad kind of panics, and Victor tells him that the creatures like to take things. They end up finding Jasper deeper in the tunnels just as the creatures start waking up. And one of the creatures says to Victor, if you keep coming down here, one of these days we're gonna make you stay. And the two bolt out of there faster than Lunchley bolting off the shelves after people kept finding mold in the cheese. I guess you could say Victor and his dad are in the thick of it right now. When Victor explains that they need to make Jasper tell his story, Victor's dad is confused since, well, Jasper is a toy. But we, the viewers, and Victor himself have seen Jasper talk, and I imagine in the next episode we'll be hearing his story in full. I feel like whatever this story is that Jasper needs to tell or has to tell or whatever, I feel like it's really gonna make some dots start to connect. I think this episode's name, Scar Tissue, is specifically about Randall, because he's finally beginning to recover a little bit. His wounds are god-awful, and he's still in a bunch of pain, but we finally see him open up about the mental wounds he suffered during his time here. Just how terrifying and horrible and just awful every single night has been for him. He expresses a bit of jealousy to Marielle and that it must be nice to, you know, just have someone to sleep with, not even in the same bed, just in the same building. And Marielle is like, you know, no one should have to be alone. You don't have to go back to the bus if you want. You can stay here. And that's awesome. That's great scene, great character development. And let's be honest, staying in that bus any longer would probably be a death sentence for Randall. This might seem a bit crazy coming from me, but I actually want to take a moment to appreciate Randall's character development. Showed up, was a total asshole to everyone, and cared about no one but himself, but as Donna put it in the episode he did show up, he'll come around. Everyone does, some longer than others, like Jade for example. Through Donna, the writers told us Randall's entire character arc through one line of dialogue, which can be tricky to pull off in a smooth fashion. But I think they honestly pulled it off pretty smoothly, and I'm actually starting to feel some sympathy for Randall. Randall, my friend, you're officially being promoted from grade A asshole to grade B asshole, and if you keep going the way you're going, grade C and beyond. Keep it up. And with that, that's every major storyline in this episode talked about. Things have slowed down a little bit, but the plot is far from at a standstill, especially with Fatima and Elgin. If I were to say what my favorite scene in this episode was, it'd probably be Donna and Kenny's little exchange. Kenny asking if he can move into Colony House is, to me anyway, a representation of him wanting to move on with the next chapter of his life. And sometimes a change of scenery and living space is exactly what we need to do that. All in all, another great episode, and the vibes in this episode definitely feel similar to the first 4 in terms of like pacing and stuff like that, but with some major plot developments happening in episode 5, I'm more hungry than ever to see what happens next. But what did you think of this episode? Feel free to share your thoughts and theories down in the comments below. I would love to do some more back and forth about this episode. I really enjoy that aspect of making videos about shows that I like. I love the back and forth, theories about things we don't know, or just thoughts about certain character arcs and stuff like that. I love that part. It's fun. And again, if you want to support me, consider dropping a sub. We're going to be aiming for 10K by the end of the year, and it genuinely mean a lot to me if we could hit that goal. And as promised, if we do hit 10K by the end of the year, I will be getting my first tattoo. It won't be related to the channel, but it will be because of you. And if you want to show some extra support, consider becoming a channel member. I cannot stress enough how amazing and awesome these memberships are. Not only do you directly support me, but you get a bunch of cool rewards in return. Shout out to the members, total legends. But that's gonna do it for now. Thank you so much for watching, and yeah, have a good day, everyone.